Hello, and welcome back to another episode of plantcare.club, where we care about your plants. On today's episode, we want to talk about water, and specifically the pH of your water and soil. But first, at plantcare.club, we like to say we do three things. Number one, we talk about your plants. Number two, we do product reviews. So soil, pots, any new plants that are coming to the market, that kind of a thing. And number three, we answer your questions. So if you have any questions that come up during this episode that you're thinking about, head on over to plantcare.club and fill out our question tab, and we can probably answer it on one of the next shows. That is actually plantcare.club. It's not .com, not .ca, it's actually .club. New thing, I guess you can use .club at the end of URLs. Okay, so who am I? My name's Fred. I have about 6 years experience at a wholesale commercial greenhouse. We sell plants across Ontario, across Canada, and the United States. We also have a farm in Florida where we grow houseplants, which we also sell across Canada and the United States. So what we try to do at the show is take the experience that we have with growing plants in a commercial, in a greenhouse, at a nursery, and how you can apply that to your houseplants and at your own home. Today, we're going to talk about the pH, which is actually very, very applicable. First off, what is pH? The definition of pH is, the pH of water, it's a logarithmic scale used to specify the acidity or basicity of aqueous solutions. So hopefully, that probably didn't clear it up because that sounds like mumbo jumbo. So, next slide. If you were listening to this, it's going to be hard to picture in your head. You might have seen it in school. They have it definitely in school. If not, you could just go on Google, look up the pH scale. So the pH scale goes from 0 all the way to 14. And in the middle is 7, which is neutral. So water is a neutral solution. That is right in the middle. Now, all the way on the acidic side goes from 0 to 7. The most acidic example that I have in front of me is battery acid. And so it goes battery acid, then let's say lemons. Lemons are at a 3. That would be at a 2, actually. Tomatoes would be at a 4. Coffee's at a 5. And as I said, water's at a 7. Now it goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which are more basic solutions. 14 is the most basic solution, which would be drain cleaner. Soap is a 12. Stomach tablets is 10. Blood is 8. And then right back to 7, which is right in the middle. In general, plants are going to want water that is running from that 5 to maximum 8 range, somewhere right in there. So we're talking about a relatively small area of the pH scale. So now I need to make myself a little smaller here. Okay, so why does it matter? Why does it matter? I'll start with a definition again and then I'll explain it. So it matters because the soil pH affects the amount of nutrients and chemicals that are soluble in soil water, and therefore the amount of nutrients available to plants. Some nutrients are more available under acidic conditions, while others are more available under alkaline conditions. So once again, that may not have answered your questions, but I will explain it. So if the pH is too high, it's likely that plants cannot absorb the nutrients in the soil. If the pH is too low, the plant cannot absorb the nutrients in the soil as well. So you need the pH to be in that band from 5 to 8 roughly. That is the general gist of what I just read there. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what I want to do is start by explaining what we do in the greenhouse, and then I can say, how do you actually apply that to your own home? In the greenhouse, water is collected usually in 3 different ways. Either from a pond that is dug nearby, it is collected from rainwater, so the rainwater that falls on the roof of a greenhouse and is it falls down into a holding tank, or from a creek. So in all 3 of these examples, it goes from the water source to a holding tank. Now that holding tank is often monitored for what the pH of that water is. And if the pH of the water gets too high, A grower can add acid to the water. It's usually naturally injected, so there's a little pump there that'll monitor it. And as the pH gets too high, let's say it gets past 6, let's say 6.5, even up to 7, you might add nitric acid to the water to lower the pH down. If it gets way too acidic, which I haven't really heard of many examples of that before, but there are different ways. I think it's sodium bicarbonate you can add. I think that's it, but don't quote me on that. You could add something to the water in order to increase the pH of the water so that it can sit right in that band that all growers like to grow in. In Florida, for houseplants, a lot of houseplants are grown in Florida, if you weren't aware. In Florida, they usually draw water from they just dig a well and they can draw it. There's a relatively high water table down there, and they can use the same processes. I don't think it's as used as often because their environment is so much more nice. It's so much nicer for the plants. Sorry, I was looking for the right word, but it's nicer for the plants, and therefore they don't need to add so much to the water. But anyway, in front of me, if you're listening, you won't be able to see it, but in front of me here, I have a little tablet. So it kind of looks like a really old cell phone, like one of the original Motorola ones, maybe, that has like a bunch of buttons on the front, and then it has like a cord that goes out to looks like a thermometer. Basically, it looks like a thermometer. So that's what it looks like. You can Google it if you'd like. It's a pH tester that a lot of growers can use in the greenhouse. And they're very expensive. So if you Google it, don't think you're going to buy it because it's way too expensive to use at your home. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Growers will use this, and this is what people are using in a greenhouse in a commercial setting. Now, what are they doing? Well, either they're dipping it straight into the soil, which is not as often, or they're trying to make something called a slurry or a slush or something along those lines. It depends on who you talk to, they'll use different words. So if you're watching online, you can see just above my head here, there's a water and soil mixed solution that looks like wet mud. That's what it looks like. So when you look it up online, it says to make this, you would weigh out 50 grams of soil, add 100 milliliters of distilled water to the 50 grams of soil and mix thoroughly. Then you wait a little bit of time, and then you dip your end of the thermometer into the solution. It'll tell you what the pH of that soil water solution is. Okay, if you don't use distilled water, then there can be different nutrients or other items that are in the water that you're using. Let's say you use tap water, the pH of that tap water can be a little bit off, which will throw off the reading of your slurry or slushy. So it is important that you use distilled water if you're going to do this. Now, I forgot to mention, you can go online and you can find different pH meters, let's say on Amazon. Totally fine. If you want to try it out, they're relatively inexpensive. If you're really keen on it and you want to give it a shot, you want to see, just test it out on your own. You would follow the exact same practices where you take a bit of the soil and you mix it with water. You want to slush it all up and then dip your meter into there to see what the reading would be. I'm not going to recommend any because I've never used any from Amazon. We use the commercial ones. However, I will note that when you take your reading, when you take the soil for your reading, it's important that you don't just use the top level of soil on the very top of your plant. So for this example, I want to talk about a 6-inch plant. Let's say you're using a 6-inch pot and you want to see what the pH of that soil is. If you scrape 50 grams of soil right off the top, you're only going to know what the pH of the top level of soil is. But as we know, there's soil all the way down to the bottom of the pot. And the top level of soil is not where all the roots are. The roots go all the way down to the bottom, and generally the roots pool at the bottom of your 6-inch pot. So what you want to do is I usually use a spoon. If you want to, you can dig down the side of your 6-inch pot and try to get an even sample all the way from the bottom to the very top of that soil in order to say, okay, this is a relatively even sample from the bottom of the top to the top. Now, don't be worried about the roots. You might hit a few roots as you're going down. Just keep digging through them. The plant will be okay. What's most important is that you get a true sample from that pH reading. If you just take the top, you may as well, you're really wasting your time at that point. If you have a lot of questions on that, I can make another video to give you an example of exactly how to do it. There are a couple of different ways. So the spoon is one way. You can flip the pot upside down. I won't go over that today because that would take too much time. Okay, so let's say you don't want to do any of that and you just want to say, give me the Coles notes. What's the easiest way of thinking about this, about doing this? Well, it's like this. Generally, as I mentioned, from 5 to 8 is the complete band for plants as far as I know. There might be some outliers here and there, but that's where most plants want to exist. All the way down the lower end, you would find items like petunia and calabacoa. They like even at about 5.5 up to 6.5. Now remember, when the water and the pH of the soil is in that kind of a range, that type of plant is able to soak up more nutrients from the soil. Geraniums, on the other hand, they can be a little bit more basic. Let's say they go from 6.5 up to 7.5. They like the neutral soil. They can draw more nutrients from that end of the spectrum. So if you have any questions on specific types of plants that you're saying, hey, what is the best pH for a sansevieria or some other type of plant you're bringing into your home, send us a message. We can answer that on the show, or you could Google it, go on to some different forums. They might be able to help you out there. Yeah, if you would like, I can do a little bit more research and find the right pH for specific varieties if you think that might be part of the problem that you're having at your own home. So with that, once again, if you come up with any questions, if you think of anything while you're listening to the show, please go to plantcare.club, and we would love to receive your questions. We can answer it either on the show or we will reply directly to you. If you are looking for any other resources, I forgot to mention this earlier. We have a ton of resources on the site. There's blog posts, there's other episodes, there's a lot of other content. If you're looking for something specifically, head to our site. We've got lots on there. Until then, I will talk to you again soon.